Hello everyone. So this is in continuation with the AWS Certified AI exam that we were discussing. So this is a practice test series that I have created. So this is the first part of the video. You can refer my previous videos for the exam questions that I got in the exam and also the basic overview of the exam. So let's begin. And these are 10 questions that I will discuss here. I will keep on making videos for practice for you. So yeah. The basic idea is like when I like let's say I show you the first question. So first I will give you around 20 to 30 seconds to think of it, or you can pause the video as well, and then you can try to see, like try to guess the answer based on your knowledge, and then you can continue the video to see if you judge the answer right, and also the explanation that I will give you behind it. So this is a comparatively easier level of questions. I will keep on increasing the difficulty as I keep on building videos. So yeah, to start with, so let's say there is a the first question is that an AI model always gives similar outputs on varying the inputs. So which inference parameter would you use to increase the creativity of the model? So in the exam, basic idea is to look at the keywords. So it is saying that it is giving similar outputs even on varying the inputs. So even if I am varying the inputs that I am giving to my ML model, it is still giving me the same answer. So how can you increase the creativity of the model? So take 5-10 seconds or pause the video and think of it, and then continue watching the video. So I hope you would have thought of the answer. So now coming to the options. If you see the options one by one, the first option is top P. And if you are aware of the term top P is basically the probability of the most probable words that the model would use to make a prediction. So let's say if I specify top P is 25, the model will take around 25% of the most probable words to make a most probable words or the thing in the model that we are asking to make a decision. So it is not like enhancing the creativity of the model. If you look at the batch size is how much batch size we are taking to train the model. Let's say if I am taking 100 samples, 200 samples, 300 samples, the more sample you take, it will increase the efficiency of the model, not the creativity. Temperature, if you are aware of it, temperature is basically used to enhance the creativity of the model. So yeah, temperature is the right answer. And going to the fourth option, that is epoch. Epoch is the number of iterations that you do to train a model. Let's say I trained a model first time and it did not give me the required results. I trained it again. So basically epoch would be 2 in this case because I've trained the model 2 times. So the best answer here is temperature, as it is used to increase the creativity of the model. Yeah, so moving ahead, second question is that a company with an online learning use case wants to build a recommendation engine to suggest relevant courses based on user interest and e-learning history. Which AWS service will meet the requirements? Yep. So basically, it wants to build a recommendation engine. Basically, it's asking you to build an ML model. If you get this, and suggest relevant courses based on users history, basically looking at users previous data, it will suggest you which courses the user can buy. Now looking at the options, also one more idea I will give you is that you can also eliminate options to make your work easier. So if you're aware of Amazon recognition is a service used to identify something. Basically, let's say identify images in a video. It's an image recognition type of service. So here we don't have any such use case of recognizing things or in a picture or in a video or recognizing faces or something. So this option is directly eliminated. You can directly eliminate this. And Lambda, if you are aware of, it's basically a service used to run codes. That is also not of much relevance here. You can eliminate this as well. And if you are already preparing for the exam, you would be aware of what Amazon Poly does. Poly is basically a text to speech type of service which converts text to speech. So that is also of no use here. So the only option left is SageMaker. And otherwise also SageMaker is basically a service used to build ML models. So you can like build data set, then train the model and so on. It's a complete service. So SageMaker would be the answer here. So I guess it's making sense to you. Moving to the next question. Third question is that a company wants to create a ML solution that guides representatives to decide whether or not to make a sales pitch. The model will take into consideration some of the input data and the output would be either yes or no. So look at the keywords. Basically, it is taking some input data and it is producing two outputs. Either it would be yes or no, depending upon whether the salesperson should go and pitch to the client or not. And this is one more important keyword. The company has some historical label data. Now, which ML technique will meet these requirements? So now you would be aware of supervised unsupervised learning methods. Supervised learning basically uses labeled data set. Unsupervised learning basically uses unlabeled data set. So if you're aware of this, you would be also aware that clustering is the unsupervised learning type of learning. It uses unlabeled data. So this option can be directly eliminated because here we are talking about labeled data set. Now coming to classification and regression. Now uh, if you are clear about the difference between two, so basically classification is something like when we are classifying some things from different categories, like let's say uh, animals classifications, plants classification, or it could be a binary classification where there are two possible outcomes. And regression is something that is a range of values. Basically it's a numerical representation. Let's say when I want to predict the weather or predict the stock prices, so it's a numerical value that will come, right? It's a range, it's not a classification. So here the output is yes or no. So basically it's a classification, it's not a regression. Let's say in the question it says that uh, someone wants to build a model that will predict the stock prices or anything that is giving out a numerical value or a range of values, then regression, you could think of regression. But here it's directly asking of classifying a yes or no. It's a type of binary classification because of two outcomes. So regression is eliminated, we are left with classification and neural networks. Neural networks are something that have some interconnections with each other, so it's also a supervised type of learning, but here there is no connection with previous things or previous nodes. Basically it's a type of uh, interconnected nodes of like where there are relations between the previous next data and so on, but here there is no such case. So simply classification would be the answer here. Moving on to the next question, it's saying that wants to analyze customer purchase history, group into segments to improve targeting. Here it's saying unlabeled dataset. So now it's a simpler question because it's saying unlabeled dataset. You can easily remove the first part, supervised learning, because it uses labeled dataset. Semi-supervised learning is something that uses both supervised and unsupervised learning. So here also some part of data is labeled, other part of data is not labeled. So this is also eliminated. You're left with two options, unsupervised and fine tuning. Unsupervised, we are already aware of that it uses unlabeled dataset. Fine tuning, if you're not aware, basically fine tuning is a mechanism to improve the efficiency of ML model. You have already trained it, now it's not giving the required result, so you fine tune a model. And the thing to note is that fine tuning also uses labeled dataset. So this option is also eliminated. So you're left with only one option, that is unsupervised learning. So that would be your answer. Correct. Now moving on to the next question. So a media company wants to use AI to detect inappropriate images and content in its application. So these are the keywords. Basically it wants to detect images. So we have already discussed that for images we already have a Amazon service called recognition, which is used to identify images. So this is a direct easier question you can directly answer. And if you want to look at the other options, Poly, as I mentioned, it's a service. You should remember like what all the services do: Amazon Poly, transcribe, medical, comprehend. So you should be aware of it because direct questions come from here. And Poly is something for text to speech. SageMaker is for building ML models. transcribe is for voice to wait a second. Transcribe is for basically poly and transcribe are opposite of each other. If poly is text to speech, then transcribe is basically speech to text. Fraud detector is basically Amazon service to detect fraudulent transactions like in payments and all. So yeah, you can read about all the AWS services that are in scope of the exam. Like some of these are there, some transcribe is there, translate is there. You can read about those. Moving on to the next question. Which ML algorithm training involves a model to maximize the cumulative reward based on feedback that is received from the environment? Basically, uh, you would have heard about it, right? Like there are different types of models: supervised learning model, unsupervised, semi-supervised, reinforcement. So only one type of model is there when the model learns from its previous mistakes based on feedback. Whenever it gets feedback, it learns from the mistakes and makes a decision next time. So this is simply reinforcement learning. Like the if you have read about this, reinforcement learning has this concept only based on reward system. It makes the next decisions. Rest, I think you would be aware of supervised and supervised. Semi is a mix of both supervised and unsupervised. Yep. Now, legal company is building a solution to extract text from a dataset of voice recordings. Just make sure that you are pausing the video and trying to make an answer, because that will tell you how much you are prepared. Now, for this also you should know the basic idea of what these AWS services do. So basically, it's saying that extract text from a dataset of voice recordings. So basically, converting voice to text. Voice to text. So translate is, as the name suggests, is translating one language to another. So this is eliminated. Textract is a service that extract texts from PDF and all. So basically, if I have a scanned document, I want to extract some text, so that is textract. We are left with transcribe and poly. Poly is for text to speech, and transcribe is for speech to text. So here we have speech, and where we want to extract text, so it's transcribe. Yep. Moving to next. A real estate organization wants to build a model to predict the sales prices of properties based on these factors: number of bedrooms, location, and all. Which ML technique will you use? So if you have heard my previous questions correctly, I talked about classification and regression. Classification was something when we are categorizing. Regression is something when we have to produce numerical representation of outcomes in a provided range or values. So here if you see, it is saying that predict the sales price of properties based on certain factors. So automatically regression should come into your mind. Classification is not correct, because here we don't have to classify. Clustering is also something when we are dividing into different clusters and making decisions, so that is also not correct. Reinforcement learning is when we have some feedback and we learn from it. So here there is no scope of feedback and all, because we are just predicting the price of a house based on the number of bedrooms, location, and all. So simply regression would be the answer here. Just make sure you are aware about all these supervised and unsupervised learning mechanisms. Question number 9. An ML engineer is training a deep neural network on a large data set. What is the process of using the trained model to make predictions on new unseen data? Basically, it's asking like what is like if we are training a model to make predictions on new unseen data, what is that process called? So if you see validation is something when we have trained our model, and then we basically, if you are aware, there are three types of data sets. First the training data set, then is testing, then is validation. Validation is something when we are trying to see how our model is performing. Training is something when we're training the model. So inference is basically this process when we are training the model to make predictions on new unseen data. In validation, what happens is, let's say I have 100% of data. So what's the difference between validation and inference? I am telling you that. So let's say I have 100% of data. I have split the data into 70% of training, 10% of testing, and less 20% for validation. In this case, you see that I already have a data of 100 samples. I'm using that data only, like out of 170 I've used for training, 10 I've used for testing, 20 I'm using for validation. So I've already seen that data. But in inference, I have some new data. Let's say apart from that 100 samples, I have other 50 samples. Now I'm using that other 50 samples to basically using that trained model to make predictions on that data. So that is inference. So I hope you understand the difference between validation and inference. Feature engineering is something like when I have some data and I am enhancing some features, like basically extracting some features from that data. So let's say I have date of birth data. So from that I can extract age, because if I have date of birth I can simply calculate the age, so I can extract more features from that. That is feature engineering. So here the correct answer is inference. So last question for the day is question number 10. An organization needs to log API calls for Bedrock for compliance related issues. Which service should they use? I hope most of you would be able to answer this, because there is only a single AWS service that is used for this type of things, cloud-trail, because it logs all the most of the API calls that are made. Like let's say if I'm creating a stream, so create stream API call would be logged, which would give us the information on who made those call, what was the more details. CloudWatch is something for monitoring purposes. Inspector is something for basically checking the vulnerabilities in like EC2 instance or something, OS updates and all. And config is basically used for, let's say I have some configurations of a resource and I made some changes in that. So config will basically monitor the changes made in the configurations of a resource. You understand my point, right? Like I just have a EC2 resource, I have some configurations, I did some changes there in the settings, so that changes would get logged in that config part. So I just want to log the API call, so cloud-trail is my answer. So I hope you found this video useful. Basically these were 10 questions. I will make more videos, and as I make more videos I will try to increase the difficulty as per the exam standards as well. This was to give you a basic idea of what questions you can expect, because in my experience, like when I attempted 85 questions, 10 to 15 questions were like this, which you, if you know about the service, you can answer. Rest, let's say 30 to 45 questions are based on your technical knowledge and thinking skills, because it was a bit twisted, so you have to think a little bit. And let's say rest 20 was some little difficult questions which you might not be aware of. So we tried to cover all of these. Yeah, so that's for all. Thanks. Cheers.